Few things hurt more than a man who disappears without a word. At 60, when you've earned the right to expect honesty and maturity, ghosting feels like a betrayal of everything you believed about love. That silence, it cuts deeper than any harsh word ever could. It makes you question your worth, your desirability, your very essence as a woman. Most older women tell themselves, if I had been younger, prettier, more perfect, he wouldn't have disappeared. Hi, it's Vernon, and today I'm sharing 5 brutal truths about why men ghost women over 60 and the powerful strategies to protect your heart while staying open to love. Ghosting has nothing to do with your age or beauty. It's about his fear, his immaturity, his inability to face real intimacy. Before we dive in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. That way, you'll never miss more elderly wisdom about love, dating, and confidence after 60. So, let's peel back the first layer of truth about ghosting. And you may find it's not what you expected.
1. He lacks emotional maturity. Aristotle once said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." The painful reality is that many men never reach that point. They don't truly know themselves, and they don't know how to handle others when emotions get messy. That's why the first brutal truth is this: many men ghost because they lack emotional maturity. Ending things with honesty requires courage. It means facing discomfort, looking someone in the eye and saying, "I don't see a future," or "I'm not ready to continue this." Immature men can't do that. They choose the easier path, silence. Ghosting is escape, dressed up as avoidance. They tell themselves it's harmless, but what they don't realize is that silence cuts deeper than words ever could. I saw this clearly with my own sister. After raising her kids and focusing on her work for decades, she decided to try dating again at 60. She met a man online who seemed genuine. For weeks, they spoke daily, texts, phone calls, even video chats. She told me she felt a spark she hadn't felt in years. Then, suddenly, nothing. Messages went unanswered. Days turned into weeks. No explanation ever came. She finally admitted to me, "Vernon, I could have handled the truth. What crushed me was the silence." It avoids responsibility. Instead of standing tall, the man vanishes like a shadow, and the woman is left carrying the weight of unanswered questions. Psychologists describe this as conflict avoidance. Men who ghost often never learned how to regulate emotions or handle confrontation. Some grew up in households where problems were ignored, so they repeat the same pattern in relationships. Others fear the guilt of causing pain, so they convince themselves disappearing is kinder. But it isn't kindness, it's cowardice. If this has happened to you, hear me clearly. It's not because you failed. It's because he couldn't face his own discomfort. His silence is not proof of your inadequacy. It's proof of his immaturity. Ghosting often reveals a man's lack of emotional maturity. And once you see it for what it is, you stop blaming yourself. But immaturity isn't the only reason men disappear. Sometimes ghosting isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about running from intimacy itself. 2. He fears true intimacy. You've probably seen it happen. Things seem to be going beautifully. Long conversations, inside jokes, maybe even the first spark of emotional closeness. You can sense his guard dropping, and then, almost without warning, he disappears. You're left asking, why would a man walk away just as things were starting to feel real? Intimacy requires vulnerability, and for many men, vulnerability feels like danger. Past betrayals or divorces may have taught them that opening up only leads to pain. Others fear that if you see them too closely, you'll discover insecurities they've worked hard to hide. In their minds, disappearing seems safer than risking rejection at a deeper level. It reminds me of a line from Anais Nin. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. For men who ghost out of fear of intimacy, life shrinks. Their fear of being truly seen causes them to retreat, even from women who offered nothing but warmth. This is why ghosting can feel so confusing. The better the connection seemed, the more likely fear drove him away. And when you're left in silence, it's natural to think you did something wrong. But the truth is, his fear is about him, not you. So how do you handle it? First, refuse to internalize his fear as your failure. A man who ghosts because intimacy scares him is showing you that he's not ready for the depth you deserve. Second, remind yourself that your openness is a strength. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's courage. If he couldn't match it, that doesn't diminish your value. Have you ever had a man pull away the moment things started to get serious? If so, how did you handle it? Share your answer in the comments. Your perspective could help another woman navigate her own heartbreak. So remember, when a man ghosts out of fear of intimacy, the problem isn't your openness. It's his inability to meet you there. And when you recognize that, you can release the blame and move forward with dignity. And when it's not fear of closeness driving him away, ghosting can come from something harsher. He was never serious from the start.
3. He was never serious from the start. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." A man who enters dating with shallow motives will inevitably reveal those colors. And that brings us to the third brutal truth. Some men ghost because they were never serious to begin with. For these men, dating is not about connection. It's about ego, attention, or fleeting entertainment. They enjoy the chase, the thrill of your interest, the validation of being wanted. But from the very beginning, they had no real intention of building something lasting. Once their curiosity fades or their need for attention is met, they vanish. That's why ghosting often feels abrupt. You may think, but we laughed, we connected, he seemed engaged. How could he just walk away? The answer is that he was performing. He played the part of a serious man until it no longer served him. Ghosting was not a sudden change of heart. It was the natural outcome of shallow beginnings. These men are driven by novelty, not commitment. They crave the excitement of pursuit, but lack the endurance for consistency. When the newness fades, so do they. And because they were never invested, it costs them nothing to walk away. If a man ghosts you because he was never serious, it doesn't mean you misread everything. It means you were responding to the version of himself he chose to show you. His performance was convincing, but his disappearance reveals the truth. So how do you protect yourself? Look for consistency. A man who is serious will show it not just with flattering words, but with steady actions. He'll keep his promises. He'll follow up when he says he will. He won't push for your attention only to vanish once he has it. If this truth stings, save this video, because you may need the reminder on days when the silence tempts you to question your worth. Remember, ghosting from a man who was never serious is not a reflection of your value. It's proof that he was only there for the surface, not the substance.
Truth number 4. He doesn't want to be the bad guy. There's another brutal truth about ghosting. Some men disappear not because they don't know what they want, but because they don't want to look like the bad guy. Instead of ending things honestly, they vanish, hoping silence will do the work for them. I remember Mila, a close friend of my sister. At 65, she re-entered dating after many years of being on her own. She met a man who seemed caring and genuine. He took her to dinners, called her late at night, even made plans for the future. Mila told my sister she felt like she was finally seen again. And then, nothing. Days of silence turned into weeks. Eventually, she discovered he had been dating several women at once. Rather than admit the truth, he ghosted her, avoiding the guilt of being confronted. It's a pattern rooted in avoidance. Some men convince themselves that vanishing is kinder than saying, "I'm not interested anymore." But avoidance doesn't spare the woman's feelings. It multiplies her confusion. His silence may feel easier for him, but it leaves her carrying the heavy weight of unanswered questions. There's a line from Shakespeare that fits perfectly here. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. Ghosting is cowardice. Instead of facing a single uncomfortable conversation, these men choose repeated small deaths. Every time they dodge responsibility, every time they avoid honesty. The lesson for you is this: if a man ghosts to avoid being the bad guy, he's already revealed his character. You don't need his explanation. His silence is explanation enough. And if he lacks the courage to speak the truth, he certainly lacks the courage to love deeply. Don't chase him down for answers. Don't beg for closure. Instead, remind yourself, his silence is my closure. It's not fair, but it is final. And that frees you to move on with dignity intact. We arrive at the most brutal truth of all, the clearest sign that you deserve far better than the man who vanished.
5. He simply doesn't value you enough.
This is the hardest truth to hear, but also the clearest one to set you free. Sometimes a man ghosts because he simply doesn't value you enough. If a man truly values your time, your heart, your presence, he won't disappear. Even if he feels the relationship isn't right, he'll have the decency to say so. Ghosting is not about being lost for words. It's about not giving you the respect of an answer. His silence is not mysterious, it's revealing. That's why ghosting hurts so much. It's not just the absence of a message, it's the message hidden in the absence. You don't matter enough for me to be honest with. And that, more than anything, stings. Once you see ghosting as proof of his lack of value, not your lack of worth, you stop begging for closure. You realize that chasing a man who cannot recognize your value is like knocking on a door that was never meant to open. How do you handle this brutal truth? By choosing to match his silence with your self-respect. Instead of asking, "Why didn't he value me?" you tell yourself, "His silence freed me from a man who couldn't." That's closure in its purest form. Share this video with a friend or even in a group of women. Too many suffer in silence, blaming themselves for ghosting, when really it's proof of his lack of respect, not their lack of beauty or worth. Because the reality is simple. When a man values you, he shows up. When he doesn't, he disappears. And though it's painful, his silence spares you years of wasted energy. The philosopher Confucius once said, "Respect yourself, and others will respect you." When you walk away from a ghoster with your dignity intact, you embody that wisdom. His absence becomes your reminder. You deserve a man who values your presence too much to ever let it vanish. Because when a man ghosts, the silence speaks louder than any excuse. You've just seen the 5 hardest truths about ghosting, and each one tells a bigger story. Men ghost for many reasons: immaturity, fear, avoidance, but at the core, it always reveals one thing. He doesn't value the connection enough to face it honestly. Painful as these are, each one tells you the same thing. Ghosting is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of his limits. His silence is not your burden to carry. The real victory is not chasing after closure from him, but creating closure within yourself. It's reminding yourself that your value doesn't vanish just because he did. That's why ghosting hurts less when you stop asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" and start declaring, "I am enough. He simply couldn't handle it." To borrow a line of Viktor Frankl, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That is where true dignity is found. Which of these truths spoke to you most? Drop your answer in the comments. Your words may give another woman the strength she needs tonight. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more wisdom on confidence, trust, and love after 60. And check the description, where I've linked other videos to help you heal, grow, and embrace love with strength. I'm Vernon. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.